One guy who seems to be still managing to keep his head above water is Bibi Netanyahu. The announcement that the ICC is issuing warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant's arrest. They did so also with a Hamas leader, has in some ways strengthened Netanyahu in Israel, at least for the time being. Not to be terribly unexpected. But remember, the ICC chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, who in May announced that he was seeking these arrest warrants, and then the court has to determine whether they're going to issue them. He was the pick of the Israelis back in 2021, the summer of 2021. He replaced the existing prosecutor who was threatened if she brought any type of warrant for arrest by the Israelis firsthand. Karim Khan has since also been threatened by the Israelis, but at the time, he was their pick. They were on record as saying this guy is judicious and will do the right thing, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, he must have caught that anti-Semitism from the predecessor that was also looking into Israeli war crimes. It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, it is sort of shocking how that goes down. They caught some type of, like, I guess, a virus.
Right.
And while in this country, well, let's play this. Let's play Karine Jean-Pierre to get a sense of like how adamant the United States has become about not subscribing to, I guess, the international norms and a rules-based order. Here is Karine Jean-Pierre talking about those ICC warrants.
Does the administration see this ruling as a threat to Israel's ability to defend itself? And also Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is calling for the Senate to sanction the ICC after this decision. Is that a measure that the White House would support?
Yeah, so a couple things. Let me just say, because this is the first time I've had an opportunity to speak to this at the podium, so let me just say more broadly that we fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israel officials. We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision. The United States has been clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter. You've heard us say this before. Whatever this prosecutor might imply, there is no evidence, none, between Israel and Hamas. There's just none.
No evidence?
In coordination with partners, including Israel, we are discussing certainly those next steps, but that's going to look like. And to your question about sanctions, that's basically kind of just answered it in that last part of what I said. We're in consultation with our partners and also, which include Israel, about our next steps.
She meant there's no equivalent between Israel and Hamas,
Right.
and I would agree on that front, but not probably in the way that she would agree with. And the issue of jurisdiction was Israel's defense. You know what happened? The ICC rejected that. They said, oh, actually, we do have jurisdiction in this matter. So restating Israel's defense doesn't change the reality that the court determined that that was not enough to restrain them from issuing these warrants, which had been in the works for, I don't know, 5 months, something like that.
We're going to see Israel become increasingly isolated with the United States now, at least under Joe Biden, and probably more so, if that's even possible, with Donald Trump being the only people out on that limb with Israel. And I don't think it's tenable for this country. I don't think Israel's position is tenable in the long run either. And here is just a sense, this rogue country to our north called Canada.
Full of anti-Semites.
It's shocking. Here is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau asked about these warrants, and he responded as one. I mean, The Hague, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe you'll recall where The Hague got its start, and that was trying Nazis. But here is Justin Trudeau.
Now that the ICC has issued warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Canadian law enforcement is obligated to arrest them should they come to Canada. Will you allow that to happen, or will you step in to prevent an arrest?
First of all, as Canada has always said, it's really important that everyone abide by international law. This is something we've been calling on from the beginning of the conflict. We are one of the founding members of the International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice. We stand up for international law, and we will abide by all the regulations and rulings of the international courts. This is just who we are as Canadians.
Now that the ICC has issued warrants.
There you go.
I mean, and the consensus on this is changing, right? The liberal mainstream consensus, and that response from Karine Jean-Pierre is reflective of the Biden administration. But there were 19 Democrats who signed on, well, including Bernie Sanders, who signed on to his bill to block illegal arms sales to Israel a few days ago, and this was, I think, just a day before the ICC made this announcement. And so, like, there's a growing, even though it's a glacial pace of understanding that this position is untenable. It's just, you know, deeply destructive and immoral that the Biden administration pursued this policy when they could have led the way. They delayed some of the more sane reactions and policies as it relates to Israel, or people reaching that consensus, because the United States is the superpower that countries like Canada follows. And so Biden's leadership failures here also extend to his sphere of influence within countries where we have these partnerships with, including our neighbor to the north. So, like, Trudeau saying this now, we could have improved on this, but now that we've elected Donald Trump, you know, that opportunity is a little bit foreclosed. There will be cracks, but obviously he doesn't have a constituency of people that care about Palestine.
And we should say the Biden administration lobbied hard against senators voting in favor of this resolution. I mean, they knew it was going to fail, but
right.
They didn't want to be embarrassed, and they were embarrassed.
And
to have,
Ossoff?
Well,
I
was gonna read this. I am Georgian here. I canvassed for Ossoff and Warnock in 2020 and the runoff in 2021. I've been pleasantly surprised with how they've been as swing state voters. After seeing Ossoff's vote against Israeli arms sales and his speech on the Senate floor, I'm all in. If he keeps this up, I'll do everything in my power to get him into the Senate in 2026 and uproot my life to help him win the presidential primary in 2028. I've got some.
I think that could happen.
And I've heard rumblings of the national groundwork. I mean, there's two things. I have two reactions to this. One is, I thought it was incredibly impressive and important for a swing state Jew, frankly, to come out. I mean, it's just as risky for Ossoff. I mean, for Warnock as well. But within, like, the Jewish community, he is going to take some heat, and not overwhelming. Probably he's going to get just as much, if not more, plaudits for it. But it is important. It's an important a bulwark against the claims from places like AIPAC and the so-called Anti-Defamation League that this is not about anti-Semitism. This is about Israel's behavior and actions as a country, and if Ossoff does actually have national aspirations, the idea that he comes out and does this now is indicative of where someone who is a swing state Democrat thinks the Democratic Party is headed. And I have contended that this is, for a long time, that Joe Biden will be the last Democratic president who ever identifies as a Zionist. I mean, I think he was just out of the mainstream even for your typical Democrat, even 20 or 30 years ago.
Right.
But, and Ossoff, started his speech by citing when Ronald Reagan called Menachem Begin in 1982 and said, okay, you've done enough in terms of this Lebanese war. And within, a day, that that war was ended. And so Biden, I think, was outside the mainstream of where Democratic politicians have been for 40 or 50 years, maybe more, I mean, frankly. But on top of that, I think the Democratic Party was and is shifting away from this unconditional support of Israel, and Ossoff doing this, and maybe his first biggest vote en route to a potential national campaign in 2028 is a good indication of where at least he thinks the Democratic Party will be 4 years from now.
Absolutely, and compare that to Josh Shapiro, who is another Jewish prominent lawmaker in a swing state who is likely going to run for president in 2028. This is the kind of thing where Ossoff wants to differentiate himself and is just has a better ideology. And the Penn newspaper just came out with this great student newspaper at the University of Pennsylvania about how Josh Shapiro's involvement with the university cracking down on those anti-genocide protesters was more robust and heavy-handed than initially thought. And so you could really see 2008 and how Obama rode anti-Iraq war sentiment, and the fact that Hillary Clinton had supported it to winning that nomination reflected once again in an undoubtedly crowded field in 2028.
Hey, after pouring so much of our hope into this year's election, it is natural to feel burnt out and that the system is broken. But we can't give up now. That's what they want us to do. They want us to let the system continue as is, unchecked and unchallenged. Well, I've been working with Ground News for a long time now because they're an independent app and website designed to help you easily navigate the chaos of today's current events. For every story circulating, you can easily swipe through every news source reporting on it with transparency on their political, their regional, their bias, and their credibility. This really eases the mental load of finding the truth and holding those in power accountable. Take a break from the chaos, but don't leave your future in their hands. We need to know what Republicans are up to and how we even got here in the first place. Ground News reveals important insights on both. Demand transparency in the leaders who are supposed to serve you and the news that's supposed to accurately inform you. Go to ground.news/majority or scan the QR code to take advantage of Ground News' biggest sale of the year. Save 50% on their top-tier Vantage plan and stay informed without getting overwhelmed with what's to come these next 4 years, because we are the power behind democracy, not just bystanders in a rigged game.